Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is weave. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we use this verb. The first way you are likely to hear the verb weave used is to describe the action of forming fabric, and that comes from interlacing long threads that pass in one direction and then others at a right angle. Now, I always feel like a picture can really help, so I've included one here. You can see a lot of long white threads going vertically, right? And it might be hard to tell from this particular picture, but someone is now working horizontally, so that's that right angle, to form some fabric or here are some sort of piece. A second way you might hear weave used is to mean to make a complex story from other interconnected elements. Sometimes, as we describe great writers, great storytellers, we'll use this verb to describe what they're doing by connecting different elements or maybe different points of view into a single story. A third and related way you might hear weave used is to mean to include some element into a particular story. So you might hear someone say that they're weaving humor into a particular story. It means they're including something funny, something humorous as part of that story. You should know that weave is an irregular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, we need to drop the E and add ing to form weaving. The past tense form of this verb is spelled W-O-V-E and it's pronounced wove, wove. And then the participle form takes that past tense form and adds an N to form woven, woven. Okay? Now, today we're going to focus on more phrasal verbs with weave. I think for some it might surprise you how many different ways we can use this verb. And the first way that we're going to discuss is the phrasal verb weave around. This can have a couple different meanings. One might be describing someone or something moving side to side, and they might be doing it in an unsteady manner, so they're not feeling so well or something is making it difficult for them to move, or they might be moving side to side with kind of an unclear purpose, not a clear direction or motivation. An example of this might be, is that driver okay? That car has been weaving around the parking lot for 20 minutes. Right? So here, this might be that unclear purpose. What is that person doing? Kind of going in and out and in and around. Has been weaving around is an example of the present perfect progressive. Okay? A second way we can use weave around is just to mean that we're trying to avoid something, again, by moving side to side. An example of this. The thief wove around the crowded celebration in an attempt to avoid the police. So here we're describing a person moving side to side in order to avoid the police. Wove around here is an example of the simple past tense in the affirmative. Another phrasal verb we'll discuss is weave from. This connects back to that first meaning of our verb. So we're talking about creating something by weaving. And generally what comes after that preposition from is the materials that are being connected or woven. An example of this. Native Americans have woven baskets from grasses for thousands of years. Here's an example of the present perfect, describing something started in the past. This action still continues today. And this is a true statement. So it doesn't have to be fabric or thread that we're connecting, but we can combine things like grasses to form other objects. A second way to use weave from is to mean to create a story. And what comes after the from here is the information or the source of information for that particular story. An example of that might be the book was woven from multiple diaries kept during that era. So here, was woven from is an example of the passive voice in the simple past tense. So we don't know who or whom is responsible for our action here. But we know that diaries were the source of the information that's provided in this particular book. Now let's continue looking at some more phrasal verbs. One you might hear is to weave in and out. So here we're describing an action that is being repeated, where someone is moving in or between and out of something, right? So we can kind of envision this type of motion. An example of this might be careful, that pedestrian is weaving in and out of traffic. Okay? So here maybe we have someone walking along the road, but occasionally they kind of come into the road and then back in again. So maybe they're not well, but maybe this is something a passenger says to the driver, right? We've got to watch this pedestrian, this walker. Another phrasal verb you might hear is weave into. This can have a couple different meanings. One would be to use a particular material to create something by weaving. An example of this might be my mother-in-law wove strips of old t-shirt into rugs for her camper. Okay, so this is a true statement. My mother-in-law is a very talented artist, I would say. She works in many different mediums. She does weave in different ways and using different materials. And this is a project she did in the last few years. So what comes after into is sort of our final product. Okay. A second way to use weave into is to mean to combine various sources into a single story. An example of this. Composer Elliott Wheeler wove Elvis Presley's original vocals into various musical performances in the movie Elvis. Okay. This is a pretty recent released movie. Just saw it recently, and the music, the dancing, everything, it was incredible. And so I found myself wanting to read and learn a little more about how this movie was made. And I saw my verb weave. And so I had to borrow this from an article I was reading. And this is a true statement. So there is a current actor portraying Elvis Presley in this movie. His singing along with originals were sort of combined, and they were done in order to tell a particular story about his life. The last phrasal verb we're going to look at is weave through. The meaning here is to pass through, really a kind of dense group of people. So imagine a crowd, and you're generally kind of moving kind of quickly and smoothly between either people or things. An example of this. I had to weave through the crowd when I realized I had forgotten my jacket in the hall. Okay, so if it helps to have a picture, imagine a lot of people are leaving a particular event. I realize, oh, I forgot this, and now I have to go back. So I'm going to walk around and in between in order to retrieve my jacket and then be able to leave. Now, as I've been giving you these example sentences, I have forgotten to mention what different verb tenses I'm using. So I'll quickly repeat here. So weave in and weave out is weaving in and out is an example of present progressive or present continuous. My second example about my mother-in-law, that was the simple past tense, as is the second usage for weave into. So my example about the Elvis movie. And lastly, I used a semi-modal, had to show necessity. So there are some other examples or ways that we can use that verb. Now let's take a moment to look at some words and a phrase that are related to our verb of the day. And the first word we're going to discuss is the noun weave. So you might notice it has the exact same spelling and it has the exact same pronunciation as our verb. One way to use the noun weave is to refer to the style or the manner in which something is woven. An example of this, the blanket was made with a plain weave. So there are different ways to weave, different styles. I had to read a little bit about this. I am not an expert in weaving, but I think I learned there was a plain weave, a satin weave, a twill weave, right? So here we are describing the style in which something has been made. A second way you might hear the noun weave used is to refer to a hairstyle that takes other hair, could be natural, could be artificial hair, and sort of combines it with someone's existing hair. Might be done to make one's hair look longer, make it look fuller, thicker. So you might hear it used in this way. Did that actress have a blonde weave or did she dye her hair? So I must say this is kind of I think a delicate topic. So sort of suggesting to someone that's not their own hair could be a little offensive. So I don't know if I would openly ask this question of anyone I met, but we still might all occasionally wonder, like, someone looks different, and maybe trying to kind of figure out what is causing that different appearance. Another noun you might hear is weaver. Hopefully that er suffix is telling you this is a person who weaves fabric. An example of this. Weavers have been invited to bring their latest creations to the county fair. So you might see different people displaying their crafts, other handiwork that they've made over the course of the year at various fairs throughout the summer here in the United States. Our last phrase that we're going to look at today is to bob and weave. This particular phrase is used a lot in the sport of boxing. And what someone is referencing when they use this phrase is that someone is making really rapid, very quick bodily movements, maybe up and down, kind of, right? Trying to move side to side as well. So, how you might hear it used would be something like this: the boxer bobbed and wove as he dodged his opponent's punches. Right? So, to try not to get hit, sometimes you might reach up that way, then down here, and go kind of side to side. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.